Got some familiar faces, the executive team coming on to share what they think is going to happen in the future and what they learned from the past. Brad, thank you for being on the Ripple Drop. Looking back on the last year, what surprised you the most?
I think what probably surprised me most in 2019 was how Facebook executed their Libra white paper announcement. I thought that there was an opportunity to do that better, to get a better outcome in the end, and I think it ended up having more headwinds than they might have had they executed differently. The other big surprise, by the way, is Donald Trump, our president, tweeted about cryptocurrencies in 2019. I would not have predicted that at the beginning of the year.
What was your aha moment for blockchain and digital assets?
I think the aha moment for me, without a doubt, was having spent maybe a year talking to the leadership team at MoneyGram and seeing the transition from skepticism to significant advocacy over the course of the year. It was really profound, and I think that there was some doubt, and then I think for them seeing it solving a real problem and hearing them talk about the work we're doing with MoneyGram on their earnings calls was certainly a big aha and very gratifying event in 2019.
Looking forward in the 2020s, the next decade, what do you expect for blockchain and crypto?
I think you're going to continue to see consolidation. The world doesn't need 3,000 plus cryptocurrencies out there, and I think the utility will bear out that there'll be a migration to quality, if you will, like technologies and cryptocurrencies that can scale with market demand, with real use cases. And I think you'll see consolidation where there'll be fewer than 3,000 for sure. We can argue about how low that number goes. I've said publicly that I thought 99% would go away.
What surprised you the most in 2019?
I would have to say both the growth that we saw in RippleNet and the kind of shakeout in the industry where a lot of the poorly thought out Me Too projects just kind of died out.
What was your aha moment for blockchain and crypto?
I mean, it's got to be when I first found out about Bitcoin. I was just looking to see like what was going on in the world generally, and I found Bitcoin, and there was a point where it just clicked in my head.
And what about looking forward? What do you kind of predict is going to happen in the 2020s?
I always hate to try to predict the future, but I think we're going to see more growth of blockchain into different use cases. I think the focus is going to be on, can you solve an actual problem? Not do you have a solution that someone might be able to use for something, but do you have something that can solve an actual problem people have?
And looking back at the last year, what surprised you the most?
So I think what I found most surprising this year was the launch of Libra. Not that anyone was surprised that another big tech company was getting into payments, but really the response to the launch. And it seems to me now that it may end up not launching at all due to the way in which they were skirting regulatory issues and frankly the fact that it's associated with Facebook.
What was your aha moment for blockchain and crypto?
My aha moment for blockchain and crypto really came as I started to dig into the world of payments, and I realized that the way that digital payments work today is all of us are just passing around IOUs to everyone. Pretty much any payment you make, whether it's through PayPal or through Venmo or something like that, it's just a bunch of IOUs being passed, whereas actually with blockchain and with cryptocurrency, you can actually send true value through the blockchain and there's no intermediary, there's no IOUs involved.
Ethan, what are your predictions for blockchain and crypto in the next decade?
So I predict that over the next decade, we're going to see blockchain and cryptocurrencies really replace the entire underpinnings and the infrastructure of the entire financial system. And that the way that money moves, somewhere will touch a cryptocurrency, somewhere in that stack. It may not be end users using XRP or Bitcoin to buy things, but any payment that you make will touch blockchain, will touch a cryptocurrency in some form.
Ashish, looking back at the last year, what surprised you the most?
There are a lot of interesting things that happened in 2019. But I'm surprised how fast privacy has gone from something that people took and didn't care about to actually folks really care about how much Facebook and companies like Google own of your data. And I think privacy now becoming a mainstream topic of discussion is something that surprised me in 2019. I thought it was going to take a lot longer.
What was your aha moment for blockchain and crypto?
I remember around 2013, I was new to Ripple. Blockchain was sort of a concept, and folks were trying to figure out, what is this technology going to be really great at? And my aha moment was going down to Mexico in 2013 to meet with a team of developers, working out of a basement. And this team of developers are showing me an application where they can move money instantly using cryptocurrencies around the world. And normally that kind of power was reserved for the largest banks of the world like HSBC and Citibank, but the team of developers, 3 or 4 folks, were able to do and achieve the same thing that was normally reserved for these mega powers around the world. And I thought this is going to be a really transformative technology. And I thought that, you know, maybe the first application of this would be moving money around the world.
Seems like you were spot on.
Well, yeah, so far so good.
So what does the future look like, you know, in 2020 and even in the next 10 years?
Well, I think that, you know, typically with new technologies, people overestimate the short-term impact of these technologies. And as we're seeing with blockchain is that, hey, I think folks were a little bit ahead of their skis here. But on the flip side, I think that folks are underestimating the long-term implications and impact that blockchain is going to have on everyday lives. And so, you know, by the end of the decade, I really do think that, you know, almost every financial application will be reinvented using this technology. It's just going to take a little bit longer than folks had anticipated to get going.
Marcus, looking back at the last year, what surprised you the most?
I think for me what surprised me was the pace at which we were able to build a global network, RippleNet, using the banks and payment companies around the world, moving with Ripple and adopting the technology.
Was there an aha moment for you for blockchain and cryptocurrency?
It was when we were able to deploy Ripple with on-demand liquidity for MoneyGram, and having MoneyGram use on-demand liquidity to fund a major corridor between the US and Mexico, commercial flow, commercial use of digital asset XRP, commercial use of the blockchain. That's a really big moment. And it's kind of like the, to me, it's the shape of things to come. It's really kind of trailblazing where I think many, many companies will follow throughout 2020 and beyond.
That's awesome. So looking forward, what do you think the future holds for blockchain and digital assets, you know, in 2020 or even in the next 10 years?
I think the Internet of Value that we are creating is very much coming to life. And I can see blockchain technology merging into other core enabling technologies and together kind of creating the fourth industrial revolution. And we really are right front and center of that change with the work we're doing at Ripple and the way we're applying the blockchain tech, the digital asset XRP, the interledger model to real-world problems. And you can see in terms of the network growth and the impact we're having, how quickly we're helping that shift occur and how quickly we're bringing this vision to life.
Looking back at the last year, what surprised you the most?
I think there are a few things that surprised me in this past year. I'd say the first is the degree to which Facebook and the Libra project really had the ability to catalyze global governments across the world to come together and start to understand the urgency around developing regulatory frameworks. I think the second thing was probably around consolidation. Binance alone, I think, made 4 acquisitions in the last 6 or 12 months, and I think that that is a trend that we're going to continue to see, particularly on the exchange side. Another thing that we think about a lot at Ripple, and we've made some noise about, is the persistence of fake volumes in the industry, and that is a problem that has gotten a lot of noise and attention in the past year, but surprisingly, we haven't seen much progress being made, so that's something that we're going to continue to focus on in 2020. And then I think the last is really the fact that we are fortunate at Ripple in that we have the ODL product, which is the first at-scale, institutional-grade, utility-driven use case for digital assets. And we're super excited about that. It surprises me that there aren't more utility use cases on the digital asset side, but we're excited to build on ODL, and we here at Ripple are focused on new utility and use cases for XRP through our Spring initiative, and we're excited about new products to come in 2020.
What was your aha moment for blockchain and digital assets?
For me, it was very clearly the moment when I realized that the work that Ripple was doing was exactly what this industry needed. So before I joined Ripple, I spent a year at another blockchain company, and before that I spent 14 years in traditional finance at Goldman Sachs. And so in the year prior to joining Ripple, I spent a lot of time talking with institutional investors from sort of the old world and talking to them about what it would take to adopt digital assets. And I kept hearing, okay, well, I get the speculative nature of these assets and the ability to capitalize because of that from a trading perspective. But when I really think about it, my fiat works today. I have my euros, I have my dollars. Why do I need digital assets? And that was a question that was hard to answer. And so it made me realize that for a lot of the traditional investors, there were a number of hurdles, whether it's custody or security or what have you, but a real use case of why digital assets matter and why everyday investors need digital assets was one of the key missing components for the industry at large. And so when I realized that Ripple was working on this cross-border payments problem, solving the $10 trillion in trapped capital problem in Nostro and Vostro accounts, that was the aha moment for me, and I got super excited about the opportunity to work on a product that was solving real-world problems, delivering revenue and value to the bottom line for everyday companies.
What do you sort of expect from blockchain digital assets next year and maybe even in the next 10 years?
Yeah, so to the point about Wall Street and some of the, I guess, evolution there, I think in the next year or 5 years, I think we will see more traditional banks legging into the space a little bit more aggressively than they have in the last 12 or 24 months. Not just on the blockchain technology side, so not just using blockchain technology to improve efficiencies on, say, trade settlement or reducing fees around broken trades, etc., but actually thinking about using digital assets, building sales and trading desks, building custody platforms, building prime brokerage platforms, full service suite offerings around digital assets. In addition, I think we might see central banks with greater adoption rates around the concept of using digital assets as reserve currencies. And then I think we will see derivatives markets start to explode in 2020 and beyond. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the derivatives markets outpace spot by 2x by the end of 2020. And then to an earlier point I raised around some of the activity we've seen in consolidation on the exchange space, Binance as an example I cited, I think we'll continue to see much further consolidation on the exchange side and within the OTC universe, and we'll start to see clear leaders emerge within the space.
What surprised you the most in the last year?
In 2019, I was very pleasantly surprised by demand that we saw come forward for on-demand liquidity from the existing RippleNet customer base. For a long time, we had validated the value proposition for on-demand liquidity, both from market research and talking to our customers, but it was really just a breakout year for that product and customer adoption.
Was there an aha moment for you with blockchain digital assets?
I would say my aha moment was with Chris Larsen back in 2013, when his vision for what blockchain and digital assets could enable, this internet of value, that was the real aha for me. And he described it as the internet of information has just always had this missing link for payments, and blockchain and digital assets solved the puzzle there. It kind of completed what the internet could enable. Fun fact is, in the designers of HTTP, the Internet Protocol, had an error code 402 for payment required. It was kind of a placeholder for them understanding that this would be something that technologists would have to solve in the future that was missing.
What do you think is going to happen with blockchain and digital assets next year and even in the next decade?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take the long view. So looking over the next 10 or so years, I think that we're gonna see a similar maturation of the industry and just boom that we saw with the early days of the internet. And I think of it as, the 2000 to 2010, that decade. I know the early part of that decade was a bit of a hangover from the dot-com bust, but I think the kind of growth that we saw with internet businesses and how it just became the new modern infrastructure for communication and all sorts of new industries and verticals, I think we're going to see the same happen with blockchain and the internet of value in the next 10 years.